Ladies and gents, TiVos, a staple point in history, a box that people were going cuckoo for decades, so popular that TiVos became a verb like Xerox.
Just to make sure it records, maybe we should bow our heads and say a quiet prayer to the TiVo gods.
Almighty TiVo.
It's been such a remarkable journey that's sadly coming to an end, so let's reminisce one more. It all started in 1997. Jim Barton worked at SGI on the Orlando project, a city of interconnected neighbors on the web, and you guessed it, Orlando, Florida, contracted out from Time Warner Cable, never panned out. After resigning, Jim met with Mike Ramsey, who used to work at HP, and as luck would have it, they had a vision to make the best damn home media server in the world. A vision to watch whatever you wanted, wherever. Kind of like what Unraid Plex is today if you think about it. Initially, the whole idea of a server for the time was sort of a turnoff for investors and consumers alike. A lot of features they wanted to do that didn't really make sense. But the DVR, this was something that was sort of worth working on. So the idea of a DVR was nothing new, but there was never anything to market at the time. The first mention of a DVR was in 1998 as part of a dissertation in Stanford. But yeah, TiVo was technically one of the first to launch in the market, and they were technically one of the most successful. Competitors like Microsoft's Web TV was primarily just a partnership with cable companies like Comcast. Just kind of a business justification to sort of release Windows CE in the living room. But other guys like Replay TV, this was a competitor that actually had a lot of big support in Silicon Valley and had them shaking their boots. Honestly though, what I think sets them apart probably has to be their whole iconic and fun marketing strategy. Everything from the pleasing Peanut remote to the TiVo mascot really shaped the company's culture and image. The remote alone really lit up people's faces. I mean, you can kind of look at the reviews and see what they said. But the box was sort of widely compatible with a ton of TV providers at the time. They really worked hard on a lot of good features like live TV rewind and a TV show recommendation engine. So given the channel guide, you just search for a show that you want to record and that's it. But honestly, it takes it a step further because their season pass was sort of next level. You just chose your favorite show and it would record every single new episode that was aired, so it was completely set it and forget it. You can compare TiVo to like of the iPod in the television market. I mean, it was insane. It was that groundbreaking. I mean, you didn't have to program a VCR and go fiddle with videotapes and everything. It was just an all-in-one box with a hard drive and that's it. So let's talk about the hardware. The boxes were pretty much built like a PC, an IBM processor, RAM, hard drive, and they ran Linux. Every single box they made had a phone port which was used for dial-up so it can connect to a remote server to get channel guide info, service activation for the membership subscription, and show recommendations. The first box was a Philips HDR 110, with other companies like Sony, RCA, Samsung, Pioneer, all these making boxes. And all these boxes incorporated a coax in for antenna and cable TV for the basic broadcast. But if you had satellite TV or you had premium channels which required, or the cable company which required a converter box, then it also had our included RCA in with a little IR blaster. So when it's time to record a show, it would tune in to the channel on the built-in tuner or send out the channel info using the IR blasters to the external box. Honestly, the coolest thing was the fact that there were DVD players from Pioneer and Toshiba with built-in TiVo TV tuning. So it was kind of like a VCR. It's one box that did everything for you. Now, and also the funny thing too, Pioneer was the king of AV equipment, so you know they had their elite lineup, and of course, with the built-in DVD player, it was kind of cool they had all that built in. Of course though, they eventually took over the satellite TV market with a DirecTV partnership with the HR-10 in 2004. And eventually the THR-22, and later on it kind of was a failure. But again, it was sort of short-lived because DirecTV and Dish eventually pushed their own DVRs. Later on, other companies would sort of partnership with them too, like Comcast Cable offering their own partnership box with TiVo. Obviously, again, short-lived because Comcast released their own DVRs, then later the X1. But to this day, smaller providers like RCN and Virgin Media found it more cost-effective to just supply the TiVos to customers instead of developing their own boxes in-house and getting the R&D and all that stuff, so kind of a smarter business decision. Now, the user interface pretty much stayed about the same over the years. At the time, definitely a lot more fun looking than any other boring cable box. So yeah, they had that going for them. I was never really a fan of the first interface, to be honest. It just kind of looked a little too retro-y and weird looking. But in 2010, they did revamp their interface a little bit more professional, and it kind of kept up a little bit, kind of worked well in their favor. The big picture, though, is Netflix. You guys already know about their story about streaming movies on the internet, one of the first players, but TiVo was a very big point in their success, because they already started having broadband connectivity in their boxes, so it was a no-brainer to just release the Netflix app in a software update starting in 2008. So adding fuel to their success. Now let's talk about the HiDef era, because this was huge. Everyone and their mothers wanted a high-def TV, and broadcasters started to broadcast in high definition, and it was awesome. But of course, this changed the playing field quite a bit. So almost all the cable providers transitioned to a new QAM encrypted television standard on their networks. So mostly to combat privacy with this new standard. One way around this was with cable cards, a little PCM CIA module that held channel subscriber info. So the way that digital cable TV worked was fiber was ran to the neighborhood street pole. Then it would convert it to coax with a cable node and would just sort of split the signal over and over to the customer. So in essence, everyone in the neighborhood got every single channel. But the digital cable box you rent from your provider would be assigned to subscribers' homes based on their bill and would tune to the channel that they paid for. Cable cards was sort of the same thing. Now, cable cards were originally intended for just TVs, as a way to let you watch all of your premium cable TV content without having to have and hook up a separate clunky cable box. It was great and all, but a couple drawbacks, one of them being that there was no channel guide or video on demand support. On top of this, it was kind of expensive to get the licensing, because you had to sort of license every single TV for cable cards, and so it drove up the cost a lot for TV makers, and they ended up axing it. But starting with the TiVo Series 3 in 2006, cable card tuners were built in, so yeah, a little bit of extra premium for what it was, but it was necessary for HD. And one of the best selling points with TiVos was the fact that you could now have dual tuners, so you could record a show in the background while you're watching something else completely different. So that was a really nice feature. But it didn't stop there. Later on, TiVo released 4 and 6 tuner DVRs over the years. So why is that important? In 2013, TiVo released the TiVo Mini, another great addition to their success. This essentially is what multi-room DVRs are all about, even to this day. So you had one clunky box that had all the TV tuners, the hard drive, the processing power acting as a server. It would do all the recordings and such. And then you had TiVo Minis, which were basically tiny little clients that would simply share one of these tuners and stream from the tuners onto these little boxes. And you could also stream one of the recorded shows from the hard drive onto these TiVo Minis. So you had a tiny little lightweight box that could fit behind your TV in other rooms. And you didn't have to have all the heat, the hard drive noise, and processing power in those rooms either. It's kind of really neat. And eventually, other providers like Verizon and Comcast started doing this with their DVRs. But one big selling point with TiVos was the fact that you could save a ton of money with this. So you only paid for one cable card on a 4 or 6 tuner TiVo, right? So it was maybe like $2 or $5 a month of a rental, versus a cable box, which is $7 to $15 a month rental, right? That's a pretty big deal if you have like maybe 5 or 6 cable boxes in house, as opposed to TiVos you purchased up front. You rented one cable card for the master TiVo server box, and then you had a ton of minis. So basically you're only paying like, I don't know, like $5 a month as opposed to $50 a month in all those rental fees. That's a pretty big deal that really drove success for TiVo. Alas, all good things come to an end. Since Netflix came out, younger consumers moving out of their parents' house realized they didn't need to pay for a cable. In an effort to save money, they just relied on Netflix for entertainment and YouTube. And this wasn't a big deal until around like 2020 decade. Towards then, there were a lot of TV losses, making it hard for cable companies to offer low prices. So economy of scale wasn't really working, and big providers like Verizon sort of were pushing back and saying, oh, nope, we're not going to compete on TV anymore, and everyone followed suit. Cable TV prices were rising like big time, and what happened? Less and less people are going to react and say, nope, we're not paying for this anymore. I know I did this, I didn't want to do it, but now I'm actually embracing it. I mean, it's insane. the prices right now when you could save for a house, it's just not worth it anymore. In 2019, TiVo released the HiDef interface. Same layout with a more premium look and feel, and it kept them fresh and relevant for some time, and even added 4K to their newer DVR boxes, which you could actually watch broadcast TV. Very few like Verizon did this, but too little too late. On top of this, a lot of cable companies are starting to move away from the QAM tuning to IPTV, so basically making the TiVos obsolete. So the FCC recently, they signed the death warrant for cable cards. So basically not making them mandatory anymore as it used to be. So Verizon's new Fios modems, their ONTs, don't even have a coax for QAM TV anymore. And that was in order to revamp the network infrastructure for businesses and everything with their one fiber. But Comcast as well and Spectrum, they're getting ready to eliminate the dedicated television spectrum on their coax cable to make room for faster symmetrical internet speeds on the same little coax line. Because that's what people really care more about now. So if people still want a TV, these providers are releasing IPTV boxes. So basically relying on your wireless router to grab live TV channels versus using the spectrum on the coax that was dedicated. So something the TiVos cannot do. They don't have partnerships with IPTV. It's not going to work. So it's sad to see, but it's going to happen. TiVos are going to be discontinued. It's just a matter of when. So yeah, it's a sad time, but listen, this is it was a good childhood, and I liked it. Let me know what you guys think. I am curious what TiVo meant to you. Drop a like, drop a comment below, and here's to another good future.